and welcome to Default Assault, where we take on everything by default. I'm your host, Demosthenes, and with us today, as always, is our co-host, Mr. Kyle Nash. How's it going, Mr. Kyle?
Hey man, I am stoked to be here. I am way more excited than I ever would be to be in Daytona for the coming week. Hashtag not a NASCAR fan. Moving on.
And of course, we have our special returning guest, Mr. TJ. How's it going, TJ?
What's happening, good people, man? Hey, Demos, as always, thanks for having me. Anytime you put me and Kyle in the same place, somebody's getting wet. Let's go.
So today, in honor of the upcoming Daytona 500, we will be talking about 1965's The Great Race. Directed by Blake Edwards, his immediate follow-up to the Pink Panther and the Shot in the Dark, the first two Pink Panther films starring Peter Sellers. This time he's back with Tony Curtis, Jack Lemmon, Natalie Wood, and an entire slew of stars, including one of my personal favorites, Peter Falk. You may know him as Columbo.
This was a movie I remember having a lot of fun with, and really, the infamous pie fight in this movie was lore within my family. Like, if I or my dad shouted out, "Hey, Professor!" you knew a pillow was flying at somebody's head immediately afterward, okay? We even went to the point, now keep in mind, this is in the late 80s, early 90s, we even went to the point to stop and hit slow-mo on the recording to count how many pies Peter Falk gets blasted with. By the way, those counting, that is in fact 7 pies that fly at this guy, and one of them just flies completely over his head. It's just like a random, like, friggin' UFO sighting or some crap. Gets pelted with pies galore, and was basically just a symbol in the family. And to be honest, I got so much more from it, not just the pie fight, but the whole damn movie. Because for one, at this point, I'm less than, at least at less than 15, probably younger, in middle school or elementary school even. I don't know what rum and bourbon are in pies. I didn't know that crap was a thing. Now I totally get. I never mix my pies. Throw them all, Randy. I get all that now.
My wife and I watched it together, and she's saying, we've seen this movie before. Not together, but, you know, when you're a young pup and you don't have cable, you watch what comes on. And this is one of those movies that would come on a Saturday or Sunday matinee. So, you know, I've seen bits and pieces. I saw the pie scene. And I remembered that, you know, whenever I was watching it again, but this movie is so much funnier than I would have given it credit for. I mean, when you hear the title, you're thinking The Great Race. I'm like, all right, you know, I get to see some folks, you know, going from one side of the country to the other, man. But it was so much more than that, man. So I'm ready to dissect this a little bit more.
The funny thing is, it was actually based on a real event that happened in the early 1900s. Now, knowing how the twists and turns this film takes, I bet it wasn't a faithful adaptation of that original race. For me, I saw it when I was very young. I was going through a Blake Edwards kind of period where I saw the Pink Panther films, which I've already spoken about before on the show. This is one of those films I kind of see every few years or so. The one thought that always permeated my little mind was, Natalie Wood, she looks more delicious than those pies did.
Oh, there's so much more caricature here than I could have ever possibly imagined. By the way, listen, you can go in here and still find metaphors and things that hold up sure as hell today. Miss Dubois, put her in front of a third wave feminist and see what the hell you get on the other end. I'm just throwing that out there. And of course, that's assuming the audience in question is open and minded enough to consume the entire movie therein. I love the concept of Curtis being the great Leslie, and he's just perfect because people tend to angle towards him. I found Professor Fate in this particular go round to be more sympathetic than ever, and Peter Falk as Maximilian. Maximilian is more of a zealot, understanding, hey, listen, my dude Elon here is literally building rockets that chase people, okay? This is insane.
This is the most atypical Jack Lemmon performance out of his entire career. I mean, he's always kind of been known as the nice guy, every guy. Now, of course, he's had deviations here and there, but this film is actually, just to use the word atypical is not strong enough. He is a comic joy to watch in this film. There is a scene early on where he and Peter Falk are on a submarine, and Jack Lemmon gets his fingers caught in the periscope, and it just keeps going up and down, which it's utterly hilarious. Like the best thing you ever see in a Pink Panther film. He has this side to his character, this ingenuity to everything he does, and this talent for adding his name onto everything he does in the most preposterous ways possible. But I give him credit. Of the characters, he's the one motherfucker that actually built his own car. I'm just going to say that.
He really just wants to beat Leslie. That's it. He wants to beat him, and he wants to beat him on his own terms. I mean, that's ultimately it. It's a rivalry in its truest sense, to the point to where you hate someone so much that you kind of admire them, and it's almost. I mean, it brings the whole concept of frenemies to the forefront. I think that you have a respect for your opponent because you know how good they are.
I think Leslie represents to him more an establishment that doesn't respect what it is he's trying to do. I mean, he's in there invading boardrooms and shit, trying to stymie their effort. It just happened to go through Leslie. Leslie is just a stunt guy that's doing his stuff and getting miles of support.
The best part about this film is the send-up of the characters. They're all caricatures. All three main characters. You have Tony Curtis, the perfect guy with dressed all in white, teeth always shining. He can walk it through a battlefield of pies and not get a drop on him.
13 wardrobe changes shooting that scene for Tony Curtis.
But yeah, it's just insane. I mean, that entire shoot, I've read stories about this shoot and how the pies ended up spoiling and they had to pretty much fumigate the set. But then you have, of course, you have Fate. I mean, he is such an entertaining character to balance off how wooden a straight-up caricature of the Tony Curtis character could be. The film dares you to root for Fate. And then you have Natalie Wood, literally a complete send-up of the overbearing suffragette. I do give credit to Natalie Wood and the filmmakers because she herself, I think what makes her character a lot of fun is the fact that she joins the boys for physical comedy. It is kind of rare to see that.
Great comedy with the backdrop of women's suffrage going on the entire time. I hope that this new generation of feminists, I hope that they would give this movie a watch. Only because, listen to the song. He bet not ought to swing on me. Yep. Listen to the lyrics of the song. This woman is speaking some real world shit. This is not your run-of-the-mill comedy Weird Al Yankovic type situation where we're trying to make you laugh with lines. Like, she's saying real world stuff.
All the men are hairy-chested and all the women double-breasted. We're ladylike until molested and then we're on our own. He shouldn't have had an out and a swing on me. He oughtn't have, shouldn't have had and felt so free.
She's just being humorous about it and the way she performs, so we're all laughing. But if you listen to what she say, she's saying some real world stuff. And then also towards the end of the film, when our two characters kiss, she gets upset because she says, I can be, secure with my femininity basically without wanting to have sex with you. And I think that, tying that into what's going on right now, I think it all makes sense. I mean, a woman should be in touch and comfortable with her sexuality, but just because she is, it doesn't mean she wants to lay down. When I watch it, I think it smacked me in the face more because it wasn't trying to. They weren't going overboard to say, to have the scene happen and then somebody pop up in the back of the screen and say, message. No, that didn't need to happen there. They were subtle with it. The line and the writing was done well enough in a way to where if you're remotely conscious, you can pay attention and understand exactly what's going on.
So you're saying it's the message is more prescient, but the delivery is far more tactful.
They did a phenomenal job delivering some very heartfelt stuff that you think about when this movie was made and considering what we have going on right now. it shows where this country is and that we haven't advanced as much as we should have, especially when it comes to women's rights.
I am glad you brought the shouts on that song in particular. And listen, artistically, finding a way to rhyme the word molested in itself was a small accomplishment in itself, because think about it, as a performer, as somebody who's written poetry in the past to win ladies over, I ain't using the word molested a whole lot in my meter. It's just the wrong message from my perspective. So like hearing that, I mean, listen, that's some Wu-Tang shit right there, using words that shouldn't fit in meter like that. And booyah. I mean, it was a wonderful song. To your point, I've always loved edutainment over education in matters such as these as in movies. Okay. And I would even add sports to that in some instances. I have learned so much more from sports and entertainment than I would ever have expected, right? You learn more about teamwork and unity watching, just watching Miracle, let alone witnessing the 1980s victory over the Russians, for Christ's sake.
Right.
The film is a cartoon come to life. It's no surprise that ended up inspiring Wacky Races by Hanna-Barbera. I mean, it's all over it.
Professor would kick Snidely Whiplash's ass every day.
It is a joy to watch. I do like the fact that you did mention the music, and the original score and soundtrack composition for this film was by Henry Mancini, who also did a lot of Edwards' films, including, more famously, the Pink Panther. But the Sweetheart Tree, I love the slideshow animated opening. It is this feels like a musical film that's not a musical. It kind of has that kind of grand 1960s musical production with with only a couple songs really thrown in organically. Was there something that you didn't like about it? And I'll start off by saying that I think one of the biggest detractions from this movie is the length. I mean, this is nearly 3 hours long. Now, when it comes to the most effective comedies tend to stay around the 90 to 100 minute length. Now, I'm not saying that it can't be done well, even the longer length. Let's just look at the Mad, et cetera, world. And there's like a 3 hour comedy where it was done very well. But for this one, it honestly, some of the length, I think, started overtaking some of the more successful jokes. I think they could have trimmed it quite a bit. It is, by its very nature, an episodic film. It leaps from scenario to scenario. Who knew that a film about racing was going to spend a third of it doing a perfect send-up of The Prisoner of Zenda, complete with super serious sword fight, which I give him credit for going that route. No pun intended.
No, I co-sign, because I don't have much else negative to say about the movie. It made me laugh, and you all know, anyone playing along for the drinking game, what does Tokyo J go for? I want an experience. I want to sit down and I want to take a ride. So for this movie, no pun intended as far as taking a ride, but for this movie, I was able to sit back, and even though, it was almost 3 hours, I was into it.
Now, here's the thing. We're talking about, it's too long, it's too long, it's too long. Friends, I would say this. It's very difficult in my mind to find a place where you cut something that would be a tragedy if it never made it to the screen. If you cut that sword fight, you cut a very badass piece of cellulite. That was a great sword fight. I'm not here telling you it's I'm going to get his name wrong again, so get ready to correct me, Demos. It's not Basil Rathbone kind of stuff,
Rathbone.
Right? Damn it!
you have to think it's the dirtier version of what I'm thinking.
Right. It's not Basil Rathbone
Bone.
That Basil Rathbone identity is something that known for sword fighting. You set me up there, Demos. That's your fault. It may not be historically grand as Basil Rathbone right there, but it was a great scene, dude. And listen, the whole banter between these two guys were amazing. I see you picked the foil. No, it happened to be convenient. Holy shit. It's dashing in all its delivery. There is no excuse for this to be that civilized and dashing, and god damn it sure is. The fact that it stands out like that is great. Moreover, you want to take out some of that escape in there? Dude, the execution of Max going around with his lead pipe, going off camera, and you hear a thung, and you
seriously,
bro, that is what's up. That's more of that less is more moment there where we don't see Richard Thornhill, not Thorndike, Roger Thornhill, Roger Thornhill drink the whole fifth of bourbon like we talked about in the past episode with North by Northwest, but you know what happened. You hear thung, and nobody just got popped in the goddamn head, period. Which, by the way, who gets done dirtier in this movie than Hezekiah? And I like that message that, hey, even though the feminist has a noble cause, doesn't mean she can't sling some shit either. I like that part of it too.
Quite filthy. See, look, dudes ain't the only one that'll do whatever is necessary to get the job done. She will get the job done.
With all that being said, do you guys think that this film is required viewing?
Just to let you all know, I like this movie. I like this movie for your avid smoker as well as your soccer mom. This is a good film. Now, the question, do I call it required reading? Sadly enough, I have to say no. It is a great time to sit down again because I watched it with my wife. It's a great time. We laughed, we joked, we came up with other stuff. Wacky Races was a reference that we came up with early. The funniest part, when they're in the barrage and the mayor says, now, am I going to have to string all y'all up or do y'all want to be the guest honor? Like, that to me is ridiculous. She gonna have, I mean, really? Do I have to kill y'all or will y'all be the guest of honor? Like, that's a trip to me.
Delivered by Yosemite Sam, I might add.
Right. So it's absolutely crazy, man. It was a barrel of laughs, but unfortunately, it's not required reading. No.
It is not required viewing, but it's damn sure recommended. Listen, folks, TJ mentions, the O-ist to G or the soccer mom. I would also add that the kids are definitely a watch for this if they have the patience for it, if they are true cinephiles in the making, not training, mind you, but in the making. Somebody like a young Demos, perhaps, who gets on a kick to watch old movies for some reason or another, who likes the cartoon transition from the animated page to the real life arena, this also will work for them too. And if this were taught in a class and you are doing a piece on Jack Lemmon, you would have to include his scenes from this movie. However, the movie on the whole, in fact, not required reading. In fact, I'm going to go another level up. I'm going to say any movie that has a bouncing ball scene and a song in it is not going to be required.
I don't remember that scene in The Godfather, but it would have been appreciated for all the translations.
Oh, God.
That's why it is required reading. It doesn't have the bouncing ball.
Yeah, there we go. Does it live up to its name? Yes, it's a great movie, but it is recommended. It's not a cinematic necessity, but it is a good comedy, and a good comedy that has appeal to both young and old. There is humor here that adults will enjoy, innuendos and double entendres to relish, but then there is that cartoon aspect that we have already spoken about that as a kid I got a full kick out of. At the core of the film, there is an essence of old-time joy.
Yes.
When we're talking about this movie, we're all saying pretty much the same things, quality movie, not required reading. If you look at the movie, the name of the movie is The Great Race. They called Leslie the Great Leslie. And Leslie would always correct them, say, I'm simply Leslie. This movie was simply a race movie. Let's take the joke and carry it over to the name of the movie. This is simply a race movie. And it was simple, but it hit the spot.
Do you think that young people today can watch this movie, especially with the themes that we kind of covered already?
Yes.
Yeah, I see that.
And hey, all the kids are going to know the gags because they've seen them whenever cartoons they've been watching too. Let's be real.
Is it though? I mean, Kyle, the cartoons that we came up on were inspired by movies like this. Would it hit now with this young audience? And I say, unless a parent or a person of authority is telling a kid, hey, you're going to sit and you're going to watch this movie, unless they require it, I don't know that the attention span of this generation would truly be able to appreciate the film. We can because we grew up on Wacky Races. We had something to identify with. I don't know that the cartoons and the type of entertainment that this generation is getting now is one that is conducive that will foster a love for this film, because it's a 3-hour-long movie. It's a Thanksgiving dinner movie.
Yeah.
Whereas this generation is used to a microwave popcorn flick.
The attention span, I think, is your most legitimate gripe there. But for my money, with the cartoons I watch with my little girl sometimes, when we do watch TV together, definitely an effect here. You know, she's watching Blazing the Monster Machines. You're seeing all sorts of stuff going on with the vehicles and stuff that they do. The whole raised vehicle going over things, and the weapons inside the vehicle like Fate has. Fate's car appears all over the place in current cartoons. The rocket that can follow things and it catching the wrong thing, that's a gag that happens all over the place. But listen, I don't have a good answer for you on the attention span piece. That's why I'm saying it would have to be something done in a school environment where perhaps it's cut up into multiple day viewings. Well, today we're doing part 1 of The Amazing Race, where they get all the way to Garacho and then this happens, you know. Now, I don't know, you want that girl singing that song to kindergartners, but hey, that's a different topic.
The women's suffrage element alone is enough for you to point out scenes from the movie and show it to this generation and say, okay, people, this movie was made 11 billion years ago. This is what they were talking about when they made this movie. Do you see any elements in current cinema or what's going on in current events with the Me Too movement? Do you see anything that you can correlate? And that right there can start dialogue. So even if you don't show the whole movie, I think those sections, and he ought not to swing on me. That right there, that should be your women's movement anthem right there.
Shit, you want to empower high school girls? Play that damn song for them. That's what I'm talking about.
That's their pep rally right there.
Well, with that said, that concludes our episode of The Great Race. I think that the three of us might be able to agree that if you have a choice this weekend and you want to watch something that is energizing and exciting to watch, I would probably watch The Great Race over the Daytona 500 myself, because at least I know in that race they'll still be going in goddamn circles.
Listen, man, I make a point of making fun of NASCAR that the best thing to watch is the pit crews. You shitting me right now?
Well, what do you guys think? Have you seen The Great Race? Have you not seen it? Well, let us know in the comments below. And if you do see it, let us know. Were we right? Was it required viewing? Was it not required viewing? What movies would you like to see us tackle? Let us know. And make sure to subscribe, like, turn on those notifications, do all that fun stuff. Make sure to tune in every Thursday for new episodes of Default Assault. Check me out on my website, hilaritybydefault.com, for weekly movie reviews and more fun stuff. On Twitter, @DefaultHilarity, and on Facebook, Hilarity by Default. TJ, thanks again for joining us. Where can we find you, man?
Anytime you want to follow me, you can hit me up on Twitter and Snapchat alike at Tokeo J, TOKEOJ. Talking Shiz Season 2 has started. We're going hard Tuesday through Thursday every week. Follow me on Twitter and you can get the link. Holla at your boy.
Hey, man, listen, give it up for Talking Shiz, because first of all, give it up for my man Tokeo J, who gets to reference going hard with a woman, I refer to as the Queen of Extreme. That means you're going hard with royalty, son. There's fours in there. But listen, he and Robin Vandenberg, listen, if you offend easily, if you do not have an open mind, this show is not for you. But I can tell you, if you do have an open mind, it is an entertaining thing. Whether you don't have to agree with everything, but I damn sure will tell you, your mind will move and thoughts will happen.
Thank you for the trigger warning.
You did it on purpose. Trigger warning for me, mother beep. I'm just saying.
And Kyle, where can we find you?
Hey, listen, man, you can find me on Twitter @BSOTG. I'm not too scared. I'm not one of these who say, don't at me. At me all you want. I'll tell you to the exact degree you're wrong. That's how I roll. #Student of the Game, #talent. And in honor of Big TJ being on the show, #Troubadour Pipes. Anyway.
Hey.
Of course, you can also find my workings on ngscsports.com as I write the absolute cluster that was this past Super Bowl outing. My write-up is still there, of course, fresh from the national holiday that is the Super Bowl. So check that out on ngscsports.com. Find me here on the regs at Default Assault. Hilarity by default. My series is coming soon. If I can get 30 seconds to write this thing without crazy Super Bowl games happening where people are scoring 74 points and throwing passes to quarterbacks and shit. Seriously, this sounds like this game was called by Hilarity by default. Saying.
They should have come to me for sponsorship. At least they would have gotten some better commercials.
True that, man.